There are so many people, aren't there, Gary, who grow up in beautiful parts of Wales, Cornwall, the West Country, the Highlands and Islands, who would love, once they get married and settle down, to get a deposit together and buy a flat or a house, but they can't because somebody's just bought something at an inflated price to put on Airbnb.
I'm not so sure why you're relating second homes to inflated prices and Airbnb. Surely everybody's at liberty to do whatever they like with their money. And if buying a second small country house is something they want to do, why should that, with an open market property, prevent somebody else from buying it? If it's an open market, if you're suggesting in the first instance that the price has been inflated because foreigners or very wealthy people are buying expensive homes, then perhaps I could understand what you're saying. But that isn't the case because the market is the market. And whether people are stopped from buying second homes or foreigners are stopped from buying second homes, that won't decrease. That won't make the prices go down, make values go down. So I don't quite see the logic in what you're saying.
Well, if people own a house and then they buy a second house for holidays or weekend trips, well, then they're reducing the available housing stock, Gary.
They certainly are, but it's not a market that is limited or specific to a particular type or individual. Anybody can buy that house. If you're trying to tell me that because people are allowed to buy second homes, prices have gone up, well, I would argue that that's wrong. That isn't the case. Prices are made by the market rather than made by the estate agents or the government or anything else.
Let's speak to Piers Linney, star of Dragon's Den, of course, on this. Do you think, Piers, that second homes are morally wrong?
I think morally wrong is a bit strong. I think this is a very complicated subject. It's not black or white. So I think the market, you can talk about the market's the market, but the market, is a function of supply and demand. So if there's less supply because people are buying more than one property, then, the price will go up. It's simple mathematics, simple economics. But the point is that you're always going to start, I think, as I was just saying that there is a market, there's a price. And if you want to change that or change behaviours, you have to come up with some kind of way of incentivising those behaviour changes. And that might be tax. It might be like in Wales where they're hiking their council tax by 300%. But the point is, if you're quite wealthy, you want a country bolt hole, and they've increased council tax by 300%, that's probably not going to deter you. So, you don't want these sort of hollow ghost towns out in the country. But the big issue I would come to really is that you've got to be very careful as local authorities about unintended consequences. Demographics are changing. Post-COVID, we don't know where people are going to live. Are people going to be spending more time in the country having city bolt holes? We have empty cities. That hasn't quite settled yet. We don't really know. Technology is changing, the need for human labour outside of cities. As we all know, cities are a function of bringing together the units of production, and that's kind of breaking down. So got to be very careful about, what people wish for in terms of trying to change that market, because you may find that 10 years down the line that these local economies fall to pieces.
Well, I think that's the point, isn't it, Gary? And the issue is that, of course, rich people will never be dissuaded from buying a second home, as suggested there by Piers. They'll just pay more. But what about the use of property as a commodity with which to make money? What about the people that are buying small houses in rural Wales just to put on the market as Airbnb properties? I mean, that's profiteering from a precious public resource, which is housing.
I don't think that's profiteering at all. I think if somebody has a cash reserve or has money in the bank today, he's going to get barely 1% or 1.25% interest on his money. What is he trying to do? He's trying to increase the value of his cash today. Cash is appreciating. So therefore, why would it be wrong for somebody to buy a home in the country, his circumstances perhaps change, decides he's got to go and move somewhere else, or live abroad, or live back in a city? Why shouldn't he take advantage of the asset it has? Why shouldn't it be income producing? Why are you saying, or why are you suggesting it shouldn't be income producing? You're going 2 stages further than when you're talking about selling it.
If you take a rural property, surely it's far better used as a home for a family 365 days a year, not just for the Easter and summer holidays.
Maybe that's so, but you can't make a law about that. You can't force people to stay in their houses. What about going on holiday for a month or 2 months during the course of the year? Are they no longer allowed to do that? Do they have to be there 365 days a year? I don't think that's ethically right either.